and welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on this episode, I'm joined by Jessica Scott, a writer, a cosplayer, and an editor for Film Cred. She's also a frequent guest on lots of podcasts, and I finally got her to come on here. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad we were finally able to make it work.
Yeah. Always tough nailing down schedules and stuff.
Yeah.
We're doing a double feature. That's what I like to do with my guests is do a double feature. We kind of locked this one down months ago when we first started talking about it. Mm-hmm. So usually what I'm trying to do now is kind of let the guest guide where this goes. But I know you like to talk about TerrorVision because that's one of your favorite movies.
It is indeed.
I figured I would give you a chance to talk with me. Well, give me a chance to talk with you about it. and talk about one of my favorite movies, which was Psycho Goreman, which I was told you absolutely hated.
I didn't hate it. I did not enjoy it, but I didn't hate it. And on paper, this should be one of my new favorite movies. So
that's what was boggling my mind, because it seems like it's very much in the same vein as TerrorVision. That's why I was like, oh, these movies will pair really well. So we'll have to definitely get into why it just did not click with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good discussion, I think. I hope.
Which would you like to discuss first? TerrorVision?
I'd like to start with Psycho Goreman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Just rip that Band-Aid off right away.
All right. Well, let's definitely get into it. So what was it that you did not like about it?
It's something that I have experienced with movies before, and I've only ever been able to describe it as, and this will age me because I know nobody or very few people type on typewriters anymore. People didn't even type on typewriters when I was a kid.
Right.
But the entire movie, I heard the writer's fingers clacking on the typewriter. I heard the script. I didn't hear the jokes. I didn't feel the characters. I heard the writer writing and chuckling to himself the whole time. Like I'm sure. And if you'll give me a moment, I usually am more prepared, but I've been very nervous about this episode because I'm always nervous when I talk about movies that I don't like, because I never want to come across like, well, if you would like it, you're stupid, because I obviously do not think that.
No.
I never want to be, come across as like condescending or like,
right.
Casting aspersions on things that people love. I never want to do that, but sometimes movies just don't work for you. And I'm sure Steven Kostanski, who wrote and directed this, is a lovely person, but it just felt like he was just like giggling to himself the whole time. Like, oh, that's a good line. Oh, that's a funny joke. And I felt like I was sitting in the writer's room, not laughing along with everyone else. Like the entire movie left me cold. I didn't smile once. I didn't laugh once. The only thing that would have gotten me was, I do not care for hunky boys, or do I? But that had been memed to death on social media.
Yeah.
So that didn't get me. Like I was like, okay, yeah, here comes the hunky boys line. But I was left so cold by this entire movie. I could hear the writer the whole time. I felt like I was watching. Have you ever seen those videos where it'll show a page of a script and like the camera pans down the script and people are reading from it? I felt like that's what I was watching instead of a movie. Like it felt very hollow and very soulless to me.
So I'm wondering if you had seen it before it got memed to death. I'm wondering if you would have gotten a little bit more appreciation for it, but I'm not positive that that's
the problem. I kind of doubt it, because that's the only thing that I remember seeing a meme of. Was just the hunky boy thing. And I was like, hunky boys, a giant space monster talking about hunky boys. This sounds rad. Right. Let's watch it. And I just kept putting it off because there are so many movies to watch. But I am just as frustrated as you are because, like I said, on paper, this should have been my new favorite movie. It's
Right.
got incredible practical effects. It's, ridiculous gore, ridiculous character design. I think part of it is one of the things I hate the most in this world is precocious children. And Mimi, I kept waiting for Mimi to die a fiery death, and it just never happened. It just never happened.
Yeah.
I can't get down with having like hilariously precocious children. That just bothers me. So I think that was part of it, but that wasn't all of it. I boil it
You
down
felt
to
like they were trying too hard.
perhaps, yes. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely kind of a smug, try hard quality to it to me. And I might watch this again in a year and love it and think, God, I wish I could erase that podcast episode from the face of the earth. But watching it for this podcast,
Right.
I just was left cold and did not like it a bit. I'm as shocked as you.
Well, I've had that same thing happen with movies too. Is like the first time I watched it, I'm just like, I don't get the hype, and sometimes that's a lot of what it has to do with for me is the hype. So many people hype it up, and I just don't enjoy it because whatever they're hyping up, I guess I'm not connecting with it in that moment, or people have just blown it out to too big of a proportion. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes when I go back to it, especially if it's something that I think should work, that I will usually get a better appreciation for it. Not always, but yeah, for sure. I don't know why this movie connects with me. It, in a lot of ways, this movie should not connect with me, because it is over the top. Like I love like horror comedy is probably my favorite genre of horror in general. And when done right, and a lot of this probably shouldn't work for me because it is over the top, and it's that, like, a lot of people were comparing it to Power Rangers, with the bad guys being very Power Rangers-esque and stuff. Yeah. And Power Rangers was just slightly past my time. I was already an adult by the time that came out. And so for me, that aspect didn't click for me, but I don't know why, but I guess just, the over the topness of it and everything just worked for me. I didn't mind Mimi. My son watched it. I recommended it to my son, and him and his wife watched it, and they hated this movie. Mostly just because they hated Mimi, and because she is obnoxious. I admit that, but for me, I guess her being obnoxious works because I don't know why, but it maybe because it is so over the top that it goes beyond even parody or anything for me. I'm not sure why, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than pretty much anybody else that I know. And everybody so far that I've recommended it to has come away from it very cold.
Oh my gosh. See, and I've never met anybody. Well, like, I've only seen people talking about it online, and every single person I see talking about it online loves it, which, to be fair, probably the people who hated it don't want to say anything if they're anything like me, because I don't want to rain on people's parade and be like, that movie you love, it sucks. I mean, I'm not saying this movie sucks. It did nothing for me.
Yeah. But I'm the same with like Malignant. Like, Malignant did nothing for me. I don't hate it, but it does nothing for me. And to watch everybody talk about it like it's this glorious piece of filmmaking, and I know that most people see it as glorious trash, but I'm just like, what? Why? It didn't, like, for me, that did nothing for me. See, on that same level.
I think Malignant did absolutely suffer from overhyped, because I heard people talking about, this is the most bonkers movie you've ever seen. It's so wild. It's so crazy. And then when I watched it, I was like, not really. I mean, I had a lot of fun with it. There are some, bonkers moments, but everybody was acting like they had never seen anything as crazy as
They're
this movie.
They're still acting like that.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't, I, that's my expectations were too high. I went in
Yeah.
expecting the craziest movie I've ever seen, and I set myself up for failure.
And really, there's one crazy scene, and they make it seem like that one crazy scene makes up for the rest of the movie, which getting to that scene is kind of slow and a slog. And not only that, but I called the twist in the credits, in the opening credits. And
right,
so
I think
that
that's the
killed it for
point.
me.
I think
Yeah.
I think the filmmakers want you, like they're winking at you, like, you know, the twist is coming, we know the twist is coming, you and I both know what's happening here, just go with it, which I
But
appreciate.
yeah.
I
But
like
I've seen
that.
so many people talk about it and not know that that was the twist.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on
And so
that.
I'm
I'm
just
like,
like, that's bizarre. It's like, has
mm.
nobody ever seen the dark half? I mean, come on.
Yeah, like they announced it at the very beginning of the film. I am a huge Malignant fan. I will say
Yeah.
that. I'm not, you know, but
Yeah.
the first time I watched it, I set myself up for failure by buying into everybody else's hype.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and I did my best not to do that with Psycho Goreman, because I was like, you know, I want to like this movie. I go into every movie thinking I want to like this movie, because
Yeah.
who wants to have a shitty time for 90 minutes to 2 hours? You know, everybody,
Exactly.
you know, I'm sure there's some people out there who love to hate things, but I am not one of those people. I
Right.
like loving things. I enjoy
Exactly.
enjoying things. So I
Yeah.
wanted to like this movie so much, but I could tell within like the first 3 minutes, oh no,
Oh,
this is not going
wow.
to go well. There is something about the tone. It reminded me more than anything of Turbo Kid, which is a movie I do like,
Oh, I love
but
Turbo Kid.
there's a certain coldness at the heart of Turbo Kid
Mm-hmm.
that I think works for that movie and does not work for this movie. And
Interesting.
I I will have to drill down deeper to figure out exactly what it is, because this is the frustrating part of talking about movies like this. I'm like, I can't explain it to you, but that's just how it is,
Right.
which really makes for scintillating podcast conversation. I'll tell you,
Right.
you know.
Well, I mean, you know, it's actually good because, you know, I love it. You're, you know, just met on it. And so that makes a good conversation, because then we can talk about, you know, what worked, what didn't work, you know. And so, yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, if we all come into it, and that's what I like about that. I mean, I've watched some movies that for the podcast that I'm like I've never seen before, and I would say most movies I end up giving 3 stars on Letterboxd,
Yeah,
because they're just okay for me. You know, most movies are just okay. They're not
yeah,
bad. They're not good. They're just okay. You know, and most, like, I'm not one of those people, especially like you said, I don't hate like generally anything. So I don't think I even have. I may have one star review on Letterboxd, because generally speaking, I don't hate anything. Because I feel like at least the movie had some redeeming value, even if I'm not going to ever watch it again.
mm-hmm.
So people
Yeah.
put a lot of hard work and time into those movies, so I can't just hate on it.
Well, I'm of two minds on that. I mean, to your point about the 3 stars, not every movie can be a masterpiece. And if you,
Exactly.
with respect, if somebody listening to this has watched a lot of movies and thinks they're all 5 stars, perhaps you are not watching as critically as you ought to. But you know what?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to have a 5 star experience every time, more power to you. But I question people who think everything is a 5 star movie or 5 star
Not
book
only
or
that, but
whatever.
I always question people who put 5 stars on things that are, you know, quote unquote classics, just because they feel they have to put 5 stars on that. Because
Mm-hmm.
so for me, like, if it's a classic and I just don't like it, then it's not getting a 5 star. You know, it's not getting a 4 star. You'd be lucky if you get a 3 star. But
1.5 stars for you, Vertigo.
yeah, no, I love Vertigo. Stop
I
it.
know, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I'm talking more like Shining, Citizen Kane. I don't like those movies. So, but
Wow.
yeah, no. Yeah, I'm ready to fight people on that. No,
No,
but
I can see the criticism of The Shining. Citizen Kane, I need to rewatch, but I'm always surprised, because that is a classic movie that I was like, I went in wanting to like it, but prepared for the possibility of it being boring, and I was not bored for a second.
oh
So yeah,
God,
I love Citizen Kane.
I've had to watch that so many times in mostly college classes that I took
Uh,
on film. And I think, well, it had nothing to do with the college classes. Like I ended up the last time I had to watch it, I was in a class about the overall arching. We had to watch a bunch of movies, and they all had to do with memory, and so that was one of them, which made sense.
right.
But I was just like, oh, I gotta watch this one movie again that I do not like, and but then when I had to write a paper on it, I ended up getting an A on the paper because I came at it from an angle that had nothing to do with anything regarding the content of the movie. It was just the fact that it was one of the first American films to use film noir techniques. And so I was like, look, I got an angle on there. I'm going to use that. I'm going to get a good grade on this paper that I don't care about this movie.
No, some of the best discussions, best pieces of criticism I've read have to do with movies that the author did not like or did not think was good. You don't have to love a movie to be able to write well about it. Some of my hardest reviews are when I love a movie because I'm like, all I know to say is I love this.
Right.
But if I dislike something, I've got plenty to say about it. Usually, obviously not the case with Psycho Goreman, but I'm sure we'll uncover some stuff.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I think is fun about doing the podcast too. So far with guests that I've had, and they bring me interesting movies, is that we can explore thoughts and stuff that I didn't have while watching it or making the notes on it before the episode. But during the episode, the guest will say something that'll kick off a thought or whatever, and then we'll go down avenues that I wasn't really thinking of, which is great. I love that. It makes me rethink the whole movie, especially if it's a movie that I didn't really care for so much. And so so that's always fun for me, and that's why I enjoy doing this. I'm still so new to it, but I enjoy being able to talk to people, and especially talking to people critically in a way, and just kind of fanning out on movies sometimes. So that's why I love doing this and getting different guests on to bring different things. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the reasons. I mean, that's the main reason that I'm always screaming into the Twitterverse. Please have me on your podcast, because I love talking to people about movies. I like talking to different people about movies because I'm always, learning something new or seeing a new perspective. And I often find that some of my best thoughts are just me talking things out. So sometimes I'll say something on a podcast and I'm like, oh, I need to write about that. Like it just comes out naturally in conversation when you're talking to people. And, that's why I love movie podcasts so much. That's why I'm sure people are tired of me being like, hey, have me on your podcast. I want to talk about this.
Yeah, I've put out the feelers for that too. Nobody's taken me up on it yet. But luckily I've, had a few people come on here, but hopefully more people will listen to this and have me on.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you're just
not, just
I yell about it like every hour on the hour. Not really. People who don't know me, I'm exaggerating by quite a bit, but
yeah, no, you're not nearly that bad. It's all good. But yeah, no, I back to Psycho Goreman.
Yes.
Since we derailed off of that, but that's fine. I like the derails. They always go to interesting places. But yeah, I don't know what it was. I really loved the movie. I loved it so much that, and it was funny too, because I watched the trailer for it before it came out, before it was available on video on demand, and I loved it from the trailer. And I don't know why I connected with it. It just hit me right in a sweet spot. And as soon as the movie was available on video demand, normally I don't buy stuff like that until it's out. Like I usually try to buy the Blu-rays. And if I can, I'll buy digital also, but it just depends. And so with that one, the Blu-ray was still a ways out. I don't even think they had announced that there was going to be a Blu-ray coming. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to buy it on VOD once it comes out.
Yeah.
And I swear I watched that thing like 3 times in a row, like in 1 week. Not like literally in a row, but
Oh,
3
okay.
times in the space of a week. Yeah. Not
See,
that
right. Well, I wouldn't have judged you. I absolutely, hey, I do you know how many times I've watched TerrorVision? Like, I'm not judging you for that. But
bad.
Psycho Goreman, I bought the Blu-ray sight unseen. Like, I knew the
Oh
title
wow.
and I knew the cover art and I knew people were freaking out over it. And I was like, this is going to be my new favorite movie bought, you know? And now I'm
Right.
like, I really need to revisit it just so I don't have this Blu-ray sitting on my shelf judging me for
Yeah.
that decision. But I think part of it is there were so many moments where it felt like the movie was saying, huh, do you see how crazy we are? Huh? Do you see how nutty we're being? Like, it felt like it was trying to, like, everybody's playing it straight. Nobody
Right.
in the cast is winking at the camera. And the cast is good. Like, their timing is good. Their delivery is good. I'm not, the actress who plays Mimi does a great job, because I'm assuming that's exactly what the director wanted, and she delivers. Like, she commits 100%.
Yeah.
Like, me hating her character is not me criticizing the actress.
No.
Sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes that's the case, but not in this case.
Right.
She did a great job. But there was something about it that just felt like it was just kind of holding things up to the camera and saying, can you just believe how nutty we are? Aren't we just crazy? And that just flew all over me. There's a certain level of detachment or irony to it that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. And
No. Go ahead.
again, I feel like I'm digging a hole with so many people, because when I
Oh
posted,
no.
I tweeted about watching this movie for the first time, and so many people were like, this is my favorite movie. I'm so excited for you to watch this. And I've been like too scared to be like, I'm so sorry,
Oh
but I did not
no.
like this at all.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, I can understand where you're coming from on that. Like, about the how it's very wink and nod at you. The people that put it out, Stephen Kostansky, and Adam Brooks, who plays the dad in there,
Mhm.
they were part of a filmmaking collective called Astron 6. And so they come from a background of making movies that are kind of, I wouldn't say parody, but very wink and nod kind of movies like that. And
Oh.
so it kind of, I can see where you're getting that feeling. Have you seen a movie called The Editor? It's a kind of a send up of giallo movies.
I have not. I've heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Okay, so that's made by the same group of people, and the Adam Brooks, who
Okay.
plays the dad, is the main character in that.
Okay. I honestly, I feel very relieved that you told me that, because I feel very validated in my feelings now.
Yeah,
Because I'm
yeah.
like, I
No.
knew it. I knew it.
No, I can totally, like I said, I can understand where you're getting that from. I didn't get that feeling. I get that. I In a way I can get that angle from it, but I guess because I just gave myself over to it, that I didn't, or I didn't mind the wink and nods, because it's just, like I said, it just hits something for me in a way that I can't even really explain. It really shouldn't work as a movie for me. Like, it should be super annoying, and because it is that over the top. Because I don't like movies that are like that. I'm trying to think of other ones. Usually they're movies I wouldn't even hazard to watch. But
I'm
Stephen,
loving
because
I'm
go ahead.
loving the Freaky Friday of it. Like, we have switched bodies, because I'm
Yeah,
supposed to love it and you're supposed to hate it, but we're the opposite.
right.
I'm loving the Freaky Friday. I just had to say that. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's great. It's interesting too, because Stephen Kostansky also made The Void. You seen that one?
I've not.
Oh, that one's really good. That one's more straight. It's not a comedy. That one's more of a straight horror film. That one's got some huge influences from John Carpenter,
Mhm.
some Hellraiser influence, great practical effects. Definitely check that one out.
Okay.
Get a chance, and I check out The Editor too. I mean, knowing going into that one that you're getting more of a wink because it's a send
Yeah.
up of shallow. It's not they're playing it straight. Again, they're playing it straight. You're kind of laughing with it more than at it, I guess. I don't
Okay.
know. It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
explain.
No,
Definitely
I see that
watch
Udo
the trailer
Kier
for
is
it.
in it, so I'm sold. I will watch anything with Udo Kier in it at least once. So
He's great in everything. I thought you would love it just because it is very much when I saw TerrorVision, because I saw TerrorVision after Psycho Goreman, and I only watched TerrorVision because you talked about it all the time. So I was just like, I have to see this movie. I have to see how weird this movie actually is. And once I saw it, I was like, oh my God, this is a lot like it in certain things, not like the whole thing, more like, crazy alien comes to Earth, uh, and family has to deal with it
yeah,
type of
yeah.
situation.
That I can see. Like the whole time I was like, I wonder what he's going to say about the similarities between these two movies. But I obviously, like, plot wise, like the bare bones of it, an
Yeah,
alien comes to Earth to destroy all
and a
mankind.
quirky family,
Yeah, yeah,
so
exactly. And the kids try to bond with it and use it for their own,
exactly.
devious means. Yeah, I can totally see that. I was
Yeah.
curious if there was anything else, um, anything beyond like the kind of basic plot beats that you saw
No,
being
I mean, well,
okay.
and it's just the alien wins in the end. He's
Yeah,
not stopped. He's not thwarted. In both movies, it just continues on. So it's I just thought that was interesting, and just for the bare bones parallels. But I thought it would match up well in that way, because that's what I like to do with when I'm thinking of movies, to do either with my kids or with guests or whatever, is to match movies, not necessarily that have a similar theme, at least. So
yeah, for sure.
so yeah. but let me see. Okay, so I think we've beaten Psycho Gorman to death. uh
Not intentionally.
no, no. Yeah, I still love it. I hope that you will, of course, revisit it later. And
Yeah, yeah,
and again, I think that's sometimes when I think that's what it really boils down to, is everybody's overhyped it so much, and everybody else loves it, and you took it on to watch also as something for the podcast, rather than watching when you were ready for it and in the mood for it. And that, I think, has a lot to do with it too, is that sometimes you're just not in the right mood for it.
yeah, I would agree with
So
that. There are very few movies that I just won't give a second chance to. I'll definitely
yeah.
watch this one again, and now that my expectations are tempered a little bit, and hopefully the next time I'm in the exact right mood for it, I'll see if I have a different take on it, and I'll let you know if that happens.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely let me know. Yeah, I had a similar experience with the movie It Follows.
Hmm.
I did not like that movie the first time I watched it. It was
Oh.
okay, but when I first got really when I jumped into the deep end of horror a few years ago, that was one of the ones that had just come out like a year or so before, and people were just talking about it like, oh my God, this is so good, it's the best thing. And I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out. That sounds interesting. you know and a supernatural being passed by sexual activity, I mean, that's bizarre and cool. And I just did not it just did not connect with me. I was like, okay, it's okay, but it was nothing special.
Oh
And
no.
then yeah, a couple of years goes by, and the director makes another film called Under the Silver Lake.
Mhm.
And I watched that movie, and that movie's just bizarre, but I enjoyed that movie. And that made me go, okay, maybe I really need to go back and watch It Follows again. Maybe I'm not catching the vibe. And so I went back, watched it, and I actually liked it a lot more that second time. So
Okay. That's interesting. I loved It Follows. The first time I saw it, I had heard the hype because I didn't see it, right at the beginning, right when it was first released.
Right.
But I loved it from the jump. So I'm always interested to hear when people kind of not reverse their opinions, but kind of reassess, I guess is a better way to
Right.
put it.
Yeah, I like to do that. I like to we just put out an episode with the kids and I on My Bloody Valentine, and both the original and the remake. And
Mhm.
I've always loved the remake. I saw the remake first, and I really, really dug it. And then I watched the original later, and that one didn't do anything for me. I was like, okay,
Oh.
it's fine. But each subsequent viewing of it, I've appreciated it a little bit more. And
Mhm.
so I like it. It's cute, it's quirky, it's got its own rhythm, it's got its own stuff. But I still will always like the remake more, probably because I saw it first. But
Yeah, that can make a big difference.
yeah. So all right. So, but let's jump into TerrorVision and why
Yay.
you love this movie so much.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm gonna do my best not to do unlike Psycho Goreman. I'm not gonna, do that. But
Right.
to me, first of all, I think the way I saw TerrorVision probably played a big part into why I love it so much. I saw it at a horror film festival, a local one, shockingly, because I live in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and we are
Oh,
not the cinema capital of the world, but we had a really, really good horror fest one year, with a lot of movies, a lot of horror celebrities, and it was awesome. Anyway, they had a screening of TerrorVision. There was a midnight screening of TerrorVision. I had never heard of it, didn't know anything about it, just walked in, sat down, and my mind was blown. It is so gloriously campy. It is, the production design is incredible. Everybody is in on the joke in an affectionate way, like in a loving way, and to me that makes all the difference. It is so smart. I will challenge anyone who calls this movie so bad it's good. I challenge you to a duel to the death and I will win. This is not a bad movie. This is a great movie. There's no, come see me, come tell me what's bad about this movie. It's so smart. It makes fun of every aspect of American culture in the 80s. It makes fun of the aerobics moms, the metalheads, and Madonna girls who don't have a personality beyond their taste in music. It makes fun of American jingoism and our obsession with the military. It makes fun of being glued to our television sets and having such a small attention span that to turn off the TV for 200 years is the only way to save the earth. They can't even turn off the TV for 20 minutes. It's so smart and funny, and it has incredible practical effects. The colors are amazing. The way it's shot is gorgeous. It's a gorgeously shot movie. There's not a single department on this movie that isn't operating at the top of anybody's game. And I am obsessed with this movie. It is funny. It is bleak. It ends with the human race being taken over by a garbage monster.
mm.
And it is just brilliant and wacky and funny and glorious and so much fun. I never, ever, ever get tired of this movie. That is why I love TerrorVision.
Yeah, I mean, I can see all that. Um,
That
I
is the
I enjoy.
most underwhelmed response. Oh,
I
okay, yeah. Well,
no, I I enjoyed it. When because you'd been talking about it quite a bit after I started following you. I kept seeing it pop up. You were talking about bring me on your podcast. I'll talk TerrorVision anytime. So I was like, all right, that's what I'm gonna do. And so I bought it, watched it, and I was like, okay, this is fun. It's I definitely don't put it up there as high as you do. I think that everything you said is accurate for the most part. But like again, I just for me, it doesn't hit like the high highs.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
definitely not going to be a 4 or 5 star for me. It's a 3 star, maybe 3.5, but it's, I guess for me, because I was actually surprised when you said that you saw it at a fest rather than having seen it as a kid, because I would have thought the way that most people come to movies like that, and have such a passion for them, are usually they saw them as a kid.
Yeah, I've had so many people tell me, "Oh yeah, I watched it on Up All Night with Rhonda Shear, and I was obsessed with it after that." First of all, I love Rhonda Shear. She is my preferred horror host. I know that's sacrilege, but she's who I grew up with. I grew up watching Rhonda Shear on Up All Night,
Yeah.
and I somehow missed TerrorVision, and I just went like my entire childhood without ever hearing of it. And then I was like 23 and went to this horror festival and saw it on the big screen. So, I mean, I can understand the appeal of,
I think
kind of
23 is
growing.
not, like, in the early 20s is a good time for also getting that,
Yeah.
because that's when I really started connecting. Well, a little bit earlier, but right in that early 20s was right when I started connecting to movies and filmmakers in a bigger way. So I can see where that, because you're starting to discover your taste. So I can see that being a big thing, like a perfect moment for that.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I've always had a healthier appetite for camp than a lot of people, which
Right.
I acknowledge does affect how much I love this movie versus how much some other people like love this movie or don't at
Right.
all, because not everybody likes camp. I love it, and that's one reason that I love this movie so much. But I am curious about something. You
Mm-hmm.
said you think what I said was accurate for the most part, so I'm curious what you disagree on.
Well, I just disagreed on it being like super great. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
and
okay,
again,
gotcha,
that comes
gotcha.
down to personal taste,
Oh yeah, for
and
sure.
so for me, like, camp is very much a movie specific kind of thing. So sometimes I really dig it, sometimes
Mm-hmm,
I'm not a big fan.
for sure.
It just depends on, like, with Rocky Horror Sacrilege. I'm not a big fan of Rocky Horror. I like aspects of Rocky Horror. I like certain scenes or certain bits from Rocky Horror. I don't like Rocky Horror as a whole. It just doesn't. I don't connect to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's the same thing with a lot of John Waters' work. He's very camp,
Yeah.
and I like aspects of his work, but I'm not as big a fan. So
I can see why you would not be a huge fan of TerrorVision then, because I've repeated this a lot, but I think it's a really good line, and I'm going to repeat it again. TerrorVision is if John Waters directed the thing instead of John Carpenter. So if you are not a John Waters
yeah, I can see
fan,
that. Yeah.
if you're not a John Waters fan, then I can totally understand you not seeing this. And that's not to take anything away from Ted Nicolau, the
Right.
writer director of TerrorVision. I'm not saying, oh, he's just copying. He's not copying John Waters.
No, no.
He's being Ted Nicolau.
Right.
But it's similar in taste, because as a teenager, I was a big John Waters fan. Like, I went to the video store and
Gotcha.
got all the John Waters movies I could get. So I had already, I had a huge appetite for camp already, even before my 20s. So I was primed and ready for TerrorVision when I finally saw it.
Oh yeah. I thought it interesting too, because before I had seen TerrorVision, I had seen I had bought a bunch of stuff from Scream Factory. They had a big sale, and luckily I had money at the time and got a big bunch of stuff. And I actually got Phantom of the Paradise, and the dad in TerrorVision plays Beef in Phantom of the Paradise. And it took me a minute when I first started watching TerrorVision. I was like, wait, I recognize him from somewhere. And it took me forever. And I was like, oh my God, got it. Now that's camp too. But again, I like that one. I think I like Phantom of the Paradise a little bit more.
And I still haven't seen it. Everybody I know yells at me to go see this movie. And it's another one that I'm like, I know I'll love it, but I thought I was going to love Psycho Goreman too. So I'm terrified that I'm not going to love Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Schrodinger's cat situation. I'm too scared to open the box.
Oh, I totally get that, because there's there's movies that I think that I would probably love, and I haven't watched them because they get too overhyped. It's hard to separate that. And like I said, it was like It Follows, or other movies that I've watched over the last few years where people are just like, oh my God, these movies are so great. And I'm like, I mean, they're okay, but they're just not my thing. And so, but like Phantom of the Paradise, I think is good. It's also got I forget her name, and I know you're gonna hate me, but the lead from Jessica Harper. Thank you. The lead from Suspiria. And so which I love Suspiria. That is that's probably one of the high water marks for giallo, and I know it's giallo-esque. People complain about whether or not it's giallo or not. I consider it giallo.
I do not. There are elements of giallo, but it's not a giallo, in my opinion.
Right. It's giallo adjacent.
Yeah, we'll agree on that one.
I'll consider it that giallo adjacent. Okay. But yeah, so I went on a giallo kick late last year and was watching a bunch of stuff, including Suspiria and some of the other ones that are more giallo adjacent. I derailed on that, and once I think I hit Deep Red, I stopped and haven't gone back yet to finish the rest of those. But
did you enjoy Deep Red?
I did. No, I did. But I don't remember anything about it now. So so the one that really connected for me the most so far out of all of them was the first one out of that bunch that I was watching, which was Mario Bava's Blood and Black Lace. That one I really enjoyed. The colors, the production design, everything in that was really cool. And so I thought that was really good. And then I just watched a bunch of others that everybody had suggested or were on lists of the best ones you should watch, right thing. And everything after that point was just kind of it was okay, but it just wasn't as good. Now again, I and Deep Red I enjoyed after that. Deep Red and Suspiria, and I know again Suspiria is not giallo, but it's still Argento. So
right.
But so I watched those and enjoyed those. I'd seen Suspiria before, but yeah, Deep Red was good. At the moment I just don't remember much from it, but I remember enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm
more so than any of the other ones I'd watched.
Yeah, I'm more than a little obsessed with you naming classics. People will swear up and down these are stone cold classics, the best movies ever made, and you're like, it was all right.
Okay, all right. We're gonna get down to it real quick. I'm gonna pull up my Letterboxd diary while we're talking, and I can tell you which ones I thought were okay, but not the greatest. Let's see.
And I'm not saying that your opinion is invalid. I admire people who don't have a problem saying that, because there are some movies I'm afraid to give my opinion on. If I had to write about it, I would be honest, but most of the time I just keep my mouth shut because I don't want people yelling at me, because I don't do well with that.
Well, here's the great thing. Here's the great thing for me. I don't have a lot of followers, so nobody gives a shit what I say. So and the few people who might just don't care anyway. So I'm like, all right, well, I can get away with whatever I want to say about movies because nobody cares.
Fair. Oh, the liberation.
Yes. So so Blood and Black Lace, I started with that. I gave it 3.5. And then the next 3 I gave 3 stars, which were The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, A Lizard in Woman's Skin, and A Bay of Blood. Which I thought those were all okay. I wasn't wowed by them, so nothing had stood out yet for me.
Okay, so are those all the giallo films that you have seen? Because that's another one, that genre or subgenre is not for everybody, because it's
that wasn't all of them. I also watched Don't Torture a Duckling. Let's see. Then What Have You Done to Solange? Your Vice is a Locked Room, and Deep Red.
Okay.
And that's where I stopped. And Deep Red was again 3.5 stars, and just everything else was 3 stars, except for Don't Torture a Duckling, which I gave 2.5. So, because I just did
Wow.
not like that one.
Okay. Okay. I really want you to watch Torso.
I don't think that one's on my list. Let me see. 1973 film.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, Sergio Martino. Yeah. All right, that one did not pop up on any of mine, but I will
Oh,
add that one to my
sacrilege.
list.
I'm so upset that that didn't show up on any of the lists you looked up.
It
But
may
no,
have, but it wasn't one of the ones that was like, because I was trying to keep it like down to like the ultra best ofs that people said
right.
were. And
Yeah.
so, and again, these lists, just like we're talking about, these two movies, that everything is so subjective. And
Yes.
so and a lot of times I think there is, again, just like we were saying about people who give something 5 stars because it's considered a classic or whatever. I think
Mhm.
sometimes these movies, they're not wrong to put them on these lists, but I also, again, subjectiveness to that. They consider that these are the classics, these are the ones you need to watch, whatever. And there may be hidden classics that, or not necessarily hidden, but other stuff that people are dismissing that might be good, might be better for even my tastes or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, I totally get that.
So yeah. And so for me, like, so far from what I've seen, I like the stuff that's brightly colored, maybe a little more ostentatious in design of that. And so many of the other ones were more muted and not as interesting. Because I think what's happened is that I've seen Giallo inspired things set
Mhm.
like before that, and that's how I think of it. And plus, when people talk about Giallo, they talk about bright colors and all this other stuff. And then so many of the ones I saw didn't have the bright colors, didn't have the interesting sets or whatever. And so they were just not as visually interesting. And the stories were just kind of meh to me. Um,
Mhm.
but again, this goes back to Malignant, and everybody was talking about how Malignant was Giallo inspired. And I was like, I guess a little bit, but I feel like Last Night in Soho was much more Giallo inspired, and nobody talks about that movie. So
See, that's all I've heard about Last Night in Soho is how Giallo inspired it was. I mean, I've heard that about Malignant as well, and I agree that it is inspired by them.
right,
But that's all I heard about Last Night in Soho, especially with like the red and blue lighting. I've not seen Last Night in Soho, so I can't speak to anything beyond the trailer and
right,
people's reactions to it.
yeah,
But that's all I've heard about it beyond uh, a couple of criticisms that I've read, which again I've not seen the film, but they're from critics that I trust. So.
right. I enjoyed the movie. That Last Night in Soho is one of my top movies from last year. Um,
I still need
I'm
to see
also
it. It's
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say is I don't I rarely just think, oh, I don't need to see that movie if I hear a criticism of it, unless it's something like so egregious that I'm like, I don't need to deal with that. So
Right.
it's still on my watch list. I just
Yeah.
so many movies, so little time, etc.
I hear you 100%. And then like for me, like I have so many movies, and I get bogged down in it too because I have so many movies on my watch list. I have so many like on all the watch lists because I have so many damn streaming services. And
Oh
then
God, no kidding.
all the Blu-rays that I have that I still haven't watched. And so I get into this like executive dysfunction of what do I want to watch?
Exactly,
And
exactly.
then I end up just watching YouTube.
Right. I just end up watching TerrorVision or April Fool's Day again. Yeah.
April Fool's Day. Good good comment because we're actually going to be doing April Fool's Day on a future podcast.
Ooh.
Yes.
Are you a fan of the movie or have you seen it or
I liked it. Yeah. Yeah, I own it. It's one of the ones I own. That was a blind buy. Uh,
oh nice.
I have quite a few blind buys, which is probably why I haven't watched a bunch of them because I'm like, I don't know these are going to be any good. People say they're good, but I don't know. And
Okay,
so yeah, April Fool's Day was one of those ones that people were like, oh my god, this is really good. And so I was like, okay, I'll check it out. I'll buy it. It was
I need to look at your
whatever.
letterbox because all the movies that we've mentioned, you're like, yeah, it was all right. Citizen Kane is all right. You know, like I am obsessed with what you actually like really love.
Yeah, I love. I think the I'm more of a mainstream person. I think my tastes run more mainstream. I don't run very fringe. So if there's something that's typically, outside of the norm, it's rare that I'm a big fan of it. I don't know why that is. It just is. Um, even the
I,
stuff that I like that I would consider more independent is hugely mainstream, like Tarantino. He's very mainstream,
yeah,
but but I feel like he's still a very independent filmmaker. He's just very popular because he still
right.
gets to
Yeah,
basically make what he wants to make.
yeah,
So,
true.
but and like Kevin Smith, I'm a big Kevin Smith fan. And
Mm.
while he doesn't make as many movies as he used to, I enjoyed what he made, as
So,
bizarre as those movies can be.
so can I ask you what you thought of Tusk then?
That's one of the few I have not seen of his. So
Okay.
I need to watch it. I have it. I own every movie he's made. Was it a couple of years ago? I had a pretty big Funko Pop collection, and
Nice.
I got tired of them, so I sold them all, and I had some good pieces. And so once I sold them, I turned that around and started buying up a bunch of Blu-rays. So I increased my collection quite a bit on that, which was
Nice.
nice. But I was like, okay, well, I didn't have any of Kevin Smith's Blu-rays. I had them on DVD before, and so I was like, I'm gonna grab all the Blu-rays. Well, a bunch of them went out of print like right before I started buying them.
Oh no.
And so, yeah, I paid so Dogma had been out of print for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and that one was not going to come back in print uh, that anybody knew for a long while because that one was unfortunately owned directly by the Weinsteins.
Yes.
And so, so that one was like, okay, that one may never come back out again. So I ended up
Mm-hmm.
paying $80 on eBay for that.
Ooh. Honestly, that's not
But
as bad as I expected you to say
no,
with
no,
that
no.
one.
I got a good deal on that. I ended up paying like $40 each for a couple of his other movies. I don't remember which ones they were, but
Mm-hmm.
they were a little high price, especially considering that I could have gotten them if I had gotten them maybe a month earlier. I would have gotten them at a lower retail price.
Yeah.
But they went out of print and everybody started scalping them, and I was like, God damn it. So but I eventually got them all. And yeah, I have not seen Tusk and I have not seen Yoga Hosers. Like
I
those
have
are the
not
only
seen
two.
Yoga Hosers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you what I thought about Tusk because I don't want to potentially sway you. But I'll be interested to see what you think when you do watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I need to watch it. I need to sit down and actually watch it
Yeah, that's
because
it.
it's from what I've seen of it and what I've heard about it, it is a bizarre ass movie, and I think that's partially why I haven't watched it yet because it's so far removed from the Kevin Smith stuff that I actually enjoy. That like I don't know, but I do want to watch it.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm very curious to see what you think.
But yeah, so it's a what's the other stuff we were talking about before we derailed? Oh, mainstream tastes. The April Fool's Day. Yes, I enjoyed April Fool's Day.
Okay.
So, uh, but yeah, we will. I when I originally envisioned the podcast, uh, it was just myself and my daughter, and because she was interested in watching some horror movies here and there, and so we were going to do it, and I was going to introduce her to stuff, and so I gave her. We watched April Fool's Day and Sleepaway Camp.
Nice.
And so we're doing an episode on both of those, and it's a shock endings. So for all the audience who already knows the endings, you'll understand why it's going to be our shock endings
Yes.
episode. so yeah, but now my son will be a part of that as he is with all of the episodes with all of us. So
That's exciting. I love
yes,
both of those movies, especially April Fool's Day. So
yeah, I like April Fool's Day more than I like Sleepaway Camp. Sleepaway Camp was one of those ones that people hyped up a lot, and the first time I watched it, I was like, "This sucks. This movie is trash." And so I was like, why did I watch this piece of junk? And then later on, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. And then I ended up buying it and I
See,
watched
and
it again.
I
And I
didn't
thought it was
know.
better.
I didn't know it had a twist ending. I didn't know that it was
Oh,
infamous. My boyfriend and I at the time, neither one of us had seen it. Neither one of us knew anything about it. We rented it and watched it and just screamed at each other at the end. What the fuck just happened for like 5 minutes straight? Like we were just like screaming, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? Over and over. And I'm sorry if you don't want me to curse like that.
no, you're good. You're good.
Because I just was like, fuck, 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 right in a row. But yeah, that was the ideal way to watch that, was knowing nothing about it.
I knew
and just
about the
renting
ending
it
beforehand. Yeah.
See, I didn't. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so shocked.
I did not know the ending to April Fool's Day, so that was a good one for me.
Oh, nice.
So,
that was a
yeah.
slumber party movie for me. I watched it as a kid.
Oh, okay.
And yeah. Oh man.
That was one of those ones I missed. Yeah. I missed a lot and that's been over the last few years for me, getting a deep dive education and a lot of stuff. And I'm still way behind on stuff. I'm like was it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series? I'd seen the first one and I hadn't seen any of the other ones, and I just watched the new one, the new Netflix one.
What do you think of the original?
I do not like it. I don't like it at all.
Why not?
Because it's,
and that's not me saying you're wrong. Why not? I'm just curious.
No. Yeah. No, because I think that's the thing. Like, and again, this is one of those things where like so many people like it that it's one of those things where I'm like, I feel odd for not liking it, but it does nothing for me. I feel like all of her friends get killed off really quickly, and then she spends the last half of the movie running around screaming incessantly, and I don't really get a good feel out of the movie as a whole. I don't understand. Like, I understand why people like certain aspects of it, but I don't understand why people love it as a whole. And because to me, it's just it's very bare bones to me. There's not much story there. And I want more from that. And that's where because I am planning on watching the rest of them, that I'm hoping that I will get more out of it. Like,
I'm laughing like that because if you want more story, boy howdy, are you going to get more story out of the rest of the installments?
Yeah. But that's where I feel like, so it's the same thing with Hellraiser. I'm not a big fan of Hellraiser. People love the first Hellraiser, and I can kind of understand why, but people who like Hellraiser really like Pinhead and the Cenobites and stuff, and they're barely in the movie. They're barely in the first movie. I know they get fleshed out more in the later movies, and I think that's where sometimes, I'm not dismissing it as them liking the first one because they saw the later ones, but sometimes I feel like once you have more of that story, that first one means more to you.
Yeah, I think, like, I'm not a huge Hellraiser fan either, but I do want to say, in Bride of Frankenstein, the bride is not in the movie for very long, but right. Elsa Lanchester is incredible, and the creature design is incredible. I think that might be what people are responding to. Like, if right. the only Hellraiser movie that had ever come out was the first one, I think people would still be obsessed with just the look of that character and the performance behind it. So
right,
I think that's kind of a Bride of Frankenstein thing.
Yeah, and I'm not dismissing that at all. I people can love these movies for whatever reason they love it. I'm just not getting as much out of it as what others do. I also don't like, I have a hard time with going back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I have a hard time with what I consider like hillbilly horror. That kind of, that out in the rural areas are like crazy people that are going to get you, and I don't know why. I just don't like it. It just does not do anything for me. It's like I watched the original original The Hills Have Eyes and did not like it.
Yeah.
and just because of the same reason, it's like I don't just did not do anything for me. Was not an interesting movie. And yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, that's to me, that's one of the reasons I love horror so much is that we have such weird rabbit holes where
Yeah.
there's something for everybody. If you're not a fan of that, if you're not a fan, I'm not saying you don't like Giallo, but if you don't like Giallo, if you don't like
Right.
specific things, if you don't like possession stories, if you don't like haunted house stories, whatever, there's something for you. There's always going to be
Exactly.
some weird little thing you can obsess over. And there are more movies that you can possibly see in your lifetime devoted to that weird little thing that you love. Like that's one of the things that is the best thing about horror to me.
Yes, yes, I 100% agree. And I think that's a, that goes into exactly, what we're talking about now, between Psycho Gorman and TerrorVision. You love TerrorVision. I love Psycho Gorman. They're very similar in bare bones means. But that's the interesting thing about it, is that you and I can like something that's very similar to each other on different levels of those and not agree fully, but but appreciate that that what we enjoy in that doesn't take away from our own enjoyment, like, or the other person's enjoyment. Exactly. And I think that's where people have to come. That's what you see a little too much online too, is like people who, somebody who definitely hates on something, like, like I said, I'm not a big fan of Malignant. I'm not a big fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That doesn't mean that I think they're trash movies. They just don't connect with me. And I see far too many people online, diss those people who don't like those things, or who like something that they don't like. And it's just like, stop.
Yeah.
Let people like what they like.
I think there is a place for criticizing movies. Obviously I'm a critic, so I kind of think there's a use for it. But the discourse over Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new one, was so exhausting. So exhausting. And
so exhausting.
I hope it's dead. I don't think it's quite dead yet, but hopefully it'll go away soon. But
it's the same people who were that had the discourse on Halloween Kills. It's people who don't like certain things just ripped it to shreds for a lot of no reasons to me. But
see, and
if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Yeah, I'm firmly in the camp that did not like the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre for several reasons. But my issue was people who didn't like it, who were telling other people that they were idiots for liking it, or people who did like it saying, well, you're not a real horror fan, or you just hate fun. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Get out of here with that. No.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's just, I know that the let people like things meme has kind of turned over and become toxic in and of itself.
Oh yeah.
Like it has become like the death of like ever criticizing anything for any reason. But just don't be a dick. Don't be a jerk about like if somebody else likes a movie or somebody else dislikes a movie. I'm
always interested in hearing, like, you texted me when you watched Psycho Goreman, you said, I do not like this movie. And so I was like, but I want to hear why, so
yeah.
And that's for me, like, I like hearing hearing or reading like actual criticism of why something didn't connect with you. I don't like people who criticize something and then make it seem like nobody else can enjoy it because they didn't. That's not honest criticism. If you're coming at it from the point that you don't like it, but others might, then fine. And these are your reasons for not liking it. Sure. I 100%, I will back you every day, but don't sit there and say it's a trash movie. And I've seen way too many articles like that, especially about any movie, but like I saw them about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and even mainstream films, people talking about how Spider-Man is trash. And I'm like, Spider-Man was a great movie. You might not like it, but it was a good movie. So
yeah, like Yeah, I've said this to somebody recently, but I'm never going to try to talk you out of watching a movie. Like if you have
Yeah,
fun with a movie, if you enjoy it, I'm glad for you. I'm happy for the people who loved Texas Chainsaw and had a lot of fun with it. Like, they went in wanting a fun, gory horror movie, and that's what they got. Good for them. Sincerely, I'm happy for them.
right.
I didn't like it, but yeah, I don't know. I think
I'll
I
be
think this
honest. I liked it
is
better than the original. So, but again, that's because what I was getting out of it was different than what you got out of it, And
yeah.
so I took it from a different perspective. Maybe again, that's my mainstreamness showing. Um, but I now to be fair, I didn't love it. I thought it was okay. So again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre series might not be my thing. So
Yeah. I mean, especially if you're not a fan of that, like as you said, hillbilly horror. I forget, like I think there's like an accepted name for that, but I can't think of it right now.
yeah,
But I
I
think
can't
that's
think of
pretty
it either.
close to it. But like,
Yeah,
going out into, the rural areas and getting eaten alive or whatever. Like if that's not for you, then yeah, Texas Chainsaw probably won't be for you. But I
exactly.
am curious to see what you think about it, because I just did a franchise watch because I had only seen the original
Yeah, I
and the
saw you did that.
2003 remake. Those were the only two
Oh
I'd
wow.
seen. And then I just watched the whole thing. And I liked some of them and disliked some of them. So
Yeah.
my favorite sequel of them all is The Next Generation. I'll say that.
And see, and I know somebody else who they just did the same thing. They watched them all again recently, and they loathed Next Generation. And so and again, that's what I love about it, is because I know people who like it, know people who hate it, and neither one of you is wrong.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. It's all about,
because it's all subjective taste. We all have our
exactly.
own flavors that we like, and that's it. It's
Exactly.
I'm not a
I,
huge Halloween fan. I like it okay, but overall, I mean,
wow.
I'm throwing all kinds of shade at everything
You
now.
are. You're like, The Shining sucks. Halloween sucks. Texas Chainsaw sucks. I
Did
love
not
it.
say any of
I
those
know.
suck.
I know. I'm just putting words in your mouth at this point, but it's just so funny to me that you're like, but you're not wrong. I admire you in that you're like, I'm not going to grade on a curve just because this has such a good reputation. I'm going to take this
Exactly.
movie for what it is on my own terms and decide what I think about it, not based on, you know, 40 years of, reverence for it. So I think
Right.
that's a good way to approach movies.
Yeah, and that's how I always am. Is just that I watch movies based on whether or not it's interesting to me. I will watch stuff like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even if it is not overall super interesting to me, but because at least with in terms of horror, like I'm trying to watch as much of the quote unquote classics and everything else that I can, because I'm interested, at least on the surface level, of seeing what it's about, seeing why everybody's like so excited for it, that everybody loves
Mhm.
that movie for whatever reason they love it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna see if it's any good for me. If it's not,
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
at least I'll have seen it and I'll have made my own opinion on it, whether what rather than listening to other people talk about it and saying, oh well, yeah, that's got to be one of the best horror movies ever.
Exactly. Like you don't want to
So
sometimes I feel that guilt where I'm like, well, everybody loves this movie, so I'm supposed to love it, but I just don't. So
yeah,
yeah, I get that.
I don't feel that guilt because
I do, but I am well, we won't get into that. This is not psychology hour.
I just no, because I understand what you're saying. I feel the same way. I would love to like have more followers. I would love to have more people talking to them, like to be able to talk to people about movies and stuff. I I don't maybe I just don't post enough. I don't post enough interesting stuff. I'm just not connecting with people. I think I'm better in person. I'm better in voice. Um, more of my personality comes across, I think, and
Gotcha. Yeah.
rather than in text. I guess I overthink things when I'm tweeting or posting anything, and so I don't I mean, I'm not being my true self on there, and so it doesn't come across as well.
Yeah.
But
I there are very few people who are really, really good at Twitter, and I am not one of those people. So
you're better at it than I am. Um, but yeah, I think that, there is that aspect of it. I can see from your point of view that, because you do have a bigger audience, you do have something of a following, that reads your work and listens to you on podcasts, and you're more of a, I wouldn't say authority, but you're more authoritative than I am on the subject. And so I can see where you come from on that, where you might be a little less likely to be like, not that you're not putting out honest stuff, but more of like, you feel like you need to like this stuff more than you are.
I don't think it's that. If I had, 3 followers on Twitter, I would still feel the same way. Just it's more has to do with my personality.
I
I
gotcha.
I don't like arguing or disagreeing with people, and I'm very insecure, so I doubt my own opinions. If I'm like, oh, I loved this movie and everybody hated it, I'm like, well, I must be stupid. It's not, I'm not,
Oh man,
it doesn't
no.
sway me. Like, I'm not going to write a great review of a movie I hated if everybody else loves it.
Right.
I'm just going to write my negative review and hope people don't yell at me for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the secret, kids. I'm always insecure, like so that's what
Yeah.
it is. It's not the follower count. I really don't. I would be
Yeah.
just as filled with self-doubt and self-loathing with 3 followers as with 3,000 followers. I'll say
Oh,
that. Not to bring the
but
room down or anything, but
no. Well, I don't think you should. I think that, from what I've read, and admittedly, I haven't read a lot of your work, but I've read a few, and I've enjoyed what I've read, and
well, thank
I've
you.
enjoyed talking to you, and uh hearing on Twitter that I think that you're you're much better than you think you are, and
Thank you.
and embrace that if you can. It's
Well, I appreciate that. This has become
yeah,
such an affirming episode.
right, right. I mean, but again, this is where I think that, for me, I like to put positive energy out there, and even if it's something I don't like again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Citizen Kane, whatever, I might not like those movies. They're just not for me.
Mhm.
If you like those movies, you enjoy those movies, you love those movies, more power to you. Those movies are great for you guys. That there's nothing wrong with that. I like movies that you might not like, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a huge Marvel movie fan. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mhm.
People trash that all day long online. I
Yeah.
don't care. It's not going to change that for me. I've been a comic book nerd my whole life. That's one of my big passions, has been being a comic book fan. And so
Mhm.
seeing that interconnected stories that they're doing on the movies and in the TV shows now is what it's like reading those comic books, and what it's been like all my life reading those comic books, and to see it on the screen in that format is fantastic for me. And people
Yeah.
can't take that away from me. I don't care if they don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
So
I've got 2 different versions of Carol Danvers tattooed on my arm. Trust me, I
yeah,
understand. Like,
yeah.
I don't think the Captain Marvel movie was the best movie, but I still cried a few times just seeing my favorite superhero up on the screen.
Oh
So,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
and hopefully the new movie will be like even better. I like the first movie. I think there were a couple of missteps. I think that it suffered from being right there at the tail end of everything. They had a lot of work to set her up,
Mhm.
and I think they maybe overreached a little bit. And
Yeah.
so, but I mean, all in all, I think it was a good movie. I think everybody hates on Brie Larson. I think she did a great job.
Oh,
So
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the 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 comic book fandom's misogyny and other,
yeah.
that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, that's a
But
topic for now. I
yeah,
did, you know what? And talking about that, I may need to get you on for a comic book centric episode, since I know you're a big comic book fan too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll definitely have to discuss this on another episode.
Yes, we could talk about Birds of Prey, the best comic book movie ever released.
Okay, yeah, let's not talk about that one. No, I think it's okay. I just it's not a big. I'm not a big DC fan. So
okay, that makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love both, but I'm more of a DC girl than a Marvel girl. Even though I don't
gotcha.
have any DC characters tattooed on me. I've got Marvel characters,
See?
but I'm more of a DC girl at heart.
I think you're not. I think you're not really. If you
Now I talk to my tattoo artist
I know.
about so many. Like I'm like, I want Wonder Woman and I want Black Canary, and anyway.
Right.
Welcome to Tattoo Talk.
and I like Birds of Prey. I thought it was a good movie. I personally loved the new Suicide Squad movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love that. I love Peacemaker. Did you watch Peacemaker?
I have not. I am so behind on the comic book TV
Oh,
shows.
man.
I got so overwhelmed by content that I've just been
Yes.
like unable to catch up.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing besides YouTube and besides watching the movies for the podcast. Is I've been like kind of catching up on TV shows. So I watched Peacemaker, I watched Hawkeye.
I did watch Hawkeye.
I love that. It was great. I don't like what they did to Hawkeye overall in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That has been a major thorn in my side from the beginning. That is not Clinton Barton. But the Hawkeye TV show got a lot closer than they had before. So
yeah, I can see that.
Because anybody who knows comic book Hawkeye knows that was not Hawkeye. But yeah, again, we're going down the comic book thing. But yeah, so I watched a bunch of that stuff, and I just watched Euphoria. I just got caught up on that. Finished the second season of that.
God, that is a very difficult show for me to watch. I tried to start binging it, and I was like, this is not a show I can binge. So I stalled out somewhere through the first season. I'll get back to it eventually, but it takes a lot out of me to watch an episode of that one. So
I like the first season. I didn't really like the second season as much. It deviated a lot, and I
just want to catch up so I want to be able to know what Euphoria Twitter is talking about, because everybody's talking about the play, and I'm like, what play? Yeah, so
well, you've got 2 years, because apparently the third season won't be out until 2024. So.
I guarantee you I will not be caught up by then.
That's not good. Come on, you got plenty of time. All right. Okay. Well, I think beating all this to death again. But
we didn't talk much about Psycho Goreman or TerrorVision, but that's okay, because I think it's been a fun conversation anyway.
No, and I think and again, I think that's what I enjoy the most about these conversations is getting on the tangents and talking about other things and related to that. We kind of really got off of TerrorVision really quick.
We did. We really did. Like,
I'm now going back on it. I'm like, oh my God, we didn't really talk about it that much.
No, we've done TerrorVision dirty.
So let's go back to that real quick if you got time.
Okay. All right.
So I did like it. I like I said, I did enjoy it. I thought it was cute. I liked I liked recognizing the actors that played OD and the daughter and of course the dad. And so a lot of that was fun for me. It's very, like you said, it's very camp. It's very silly. I think to me, it's more over the top than, and it doesn't take it away from it at all. The camp, the over the topness of it. I quite enjoyed that, but I can kind of see why this was one of those movies that like came and went in the 80s and has since become a cult favorite more than anything.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say, because this is a movie that I love dearly, but I can understand why it's not for everyone.
Right.
Part of the reason it came and went so fast in the 80s is it came out right around the time that the Challenger exploded. So I don't think there would have been a huge audience for it regardless, but
Right.
an alien coming from space and destroying the world was probably not something that the American public wanted to see much of at that specific time in history.
Right.
Um, so in the film's defense,
Well,
plus there were some there were some other distribution issues going on, so I don't think it got quite the
yeah.
fair shake it should have gotten. Again, this wasn't ever going to be the biggest movie in the country just because it's
No.
suited to a very specific taste. But I am glad that it has reached so many of those people who do appreciate it. And
Right.
that's why I talk about this movie so much. I'm sure there are people who have unfollowed me because I talk about TerrorVision too much. But I don't care. I'm so sorry, people. Thanks for following me. I wish you well on your travels, but I'm going to keep talking about TerrorVision because I want people who are going to appreciate this movie to find it. I want to find people like
Right.
me, people who have never heard of it and see it and get blown back out of their seats and think I have found my new god and it is named TerrorVision. I want to find those people and say, hey,
Right.
go watch this movie. It's great. You're going to love it. Trust me. And if there are people like you who are like, it's okay. That's cool. I'm glad you watched it with an open mind.
Right.
But I want to find the people who are going to love it just as much as I do and
Right.
spread the good word of TerrorVision because it never got a fair chance at finding an audience, I don't think. And I know there's an audience out there because I know there are other people like me out there. And I've
Yeah.
talked to TerrorVision fans online who are like, yes, this is the best movie ever. Please keep talking about it. And they talk about it all the time too.
That's
So,
interesting. Yeah. No,
yeah,
and again, I think that's what's great about like the internet and everything in general is that you can find your niche. You can find that those people that enjoy that same goofy thing that you love that you think nobody else does. And that's what I enjoy most about the internet. Like, take away all the bad stuff, and there is lots of bad stuff, but I feel like what we get out of the internet is more positive than negative. And that just really depends on everybody curating their feeds to keep it positive for yourself. Not that you turn a blind eye towards anything bad that's happening, but you can there's ways that you can keep out a lot of that other stuff. And by doing that, I think you get more positivity, or at the very least, you can filter out when you're scrolling through it, you can kind of just gloss over that kind of stuff. And besides that, finding that good stuff, the people who are good, the topics that are good, connecting with people, I think that outweighs the bad overall, in my opinion. I might be overly optimistic, but that's how I feel about it.
I admire that and I envy you that. Because I am not by nature an optimistic person, but I do agree that there are a lot of good things that come from the internet, and finding connection with people is definitely one of them. Because I mean, not to be a in these unprecedented times person, but especially during a pandemic when a lot of people are still at home, this is my only source of connection to the outside world right now.
Exactly.
And being able to find people to talk about silly movies with me is a joy. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
That's where I come at it. I'm a cynical optimist. I like to think that everything is better than it is, but I hope that things are better than it is, but I'm also realistic enough to know that there's still a lot of bad, and that I'm not going to be able to escape it all. And so I do the best that I can, and I try to connect with those people like you who are interesting and will broaden my own, I guess, horizons is as close as it is. But and that for me, especially for me getting into horror, when I got into it, I was also heavy into like Funko collecting and stuff at the time, and some of that because I had a job that was associated with it. And so because of that, so once I cut out a lot of that toy collecting stuff, which toy collecting to me was a very not myself, but the people around it, the people in the toy collecting world, can be very toxic. Not that horror can't be very toxic either. We've seen plenty of people who are super toxic in the horror community. Yeah. But again, I feel like I've been more accepted in the horror community, even more so than in that toy collecting world.
Yeah.
And so that, for me, that's been a fun thing, is connecting with people, getting recommendations for movies, and then eventually making this podcast and getting to talk to other people about stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I don't think there's like one big horror community. They're just little pockets, and if you find the right pocket, then you're golden, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like, so for me, and I know, people that I am part of, some small horror communities here and there, but for me, I still feel like I'm the outsider to all that. Like, there's people who are very much connected. They talk to each other every day. They're really good friends with each other. And then I'm just that guy who's sort of there, and for me, I've always been that outside. And this has been like lifelong. This isn't even anything new. But I've always felt like the outsider, the misfit, the person who wasn't quite nerdy enough. So I've always been a geek about comic books and movies and everything else like that, but I've never been like the uber nerd about that stuff. And so
yeah, I feel
over into that.
No, yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like, I feel like I'm kind of on the periphery, just kind of watching everybody have fun, and I'm just like, I'm gonna be over here.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
This is not me like criticizing anybody. That's just I get that feeling completely.
Yeah, and no, and like 100%, most of it is my own fault. I don't engage a lot of times, just because I think it's just part of it was growing up. I was a military kid, and I moved around a lot. Every 3 or 4 years we had to move. And so making connections with people was easy to do. I can make connections with people. Sustaining them is not as easy.
Yeah.
And eventually it just goes away. Most of my friendships and connections end up fizzling away after, a little while. Some of them stick around, it just depends. But I'm very much at fault for most of that. So, and I'm aware of that. So it's not, I'm not blaming anybody but myself. So.
Yeah. I feel like we've kind of gotten into like therapy talk.
Deep therapy talk. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think the audience wants to hear me go deeper into this.
And that's what I think is interesting. That for me, again, this is what I think is fun about the podcast, about doing it, is because, you go on these tangents and talk about heavy stuff. I do it with the kids too. We go on tangents about, related to the topics and stuff, but we go off on tangents about the mental health and, other stuff. And so it's fun to do for me. Might not be as fun for the audience. Maybe that's why I don't have as many listeners.
No, it just takes time.
Yeah. I know. I'm not like, I don't even know if I want to be popular. Honestly.
I know, right? Like,
I don't need that scrutiny.
Exactly. Like, I don't want the pressure. And I always hear people like, I am not even anywhere close to this. This is never going to happen. But I've always heard people say that on Twitter, the tipping point is having 10,000 followers. Like, the site is usable and fun up until that point. And then after that, it's just hell on earth. That's what I've always heard, is that is the magic number. And like I said, I'll never be there, and I never want to be there.
I'm nowhere near close to that. I don't even have 200 followers yet. And I've been on this stupid app since 2007. I think. It's early on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like every now and then I'll be like, hey, I'm like 3 followers away from a round number, but that's because I like round numbers. It's not
No,
because
no,
I'm
I
like,
totally get that.
I want 1 million followers. Like, no.
I'd like to crack 200. That's my thing. I'm at 191 right now. I'd like to crack 200. That would be fun for me, just to be like, hey,
Yeah,
finally, yay. But
exactly.
we'll see. I like I said, I don't really want to be popular because I don't want this to become a have to do type of thing. I don't want to have people's
Hmm.
expectations of this because
Yeah.
this is for me. This has been creatively. I've wanted to be a creative person for so long, and I've never had an outlet for it. I'm not good at art. I can't focus long enough to write. Uh, so doing this has been, a good creative outlet for me, and I don't want it to become a job. I don't want it to become a burden. That's why I probably won't
Hmm.
do ads ever. Um,
Yeah,
because I don't want it to become something where I'm beholden to other people other than myself.
I
And
totally get that.
and that's why, like, even with the kids, my kids, they have, they my daughter works and goes to school, and my son works and has a, 9-month-old baby, and so they can't really join me all the time. They're busy, and so I'm like, okay, well, when you guys can, let's do this. And I tried to do it more than once a month, but looks like we're just doing it once a month now. That's as much as I can eke out of them. That's why I'm like, okay, everybody else needs to come on and do guest spots, please. So, but yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I have had a lot of fun talking to you, even if we veered off of TerrorVision
Right.
and Psycho Gorman quite a lot.
No, you know me, I'm all about tangents too. Like I love, I think we both have ADHD and
Oh
we
yeah,
kind of just go chase thoughts wherever they take us and I'm down with it. So yeah,
exactly.
I've had a lot of fun. And I'm sorry if I came on a little too like aggro, but I've been like in such a like mood about people kind of disrespecting TerrorVision or like talking about it like
Oh
it's this
no,
really terrible movie. So I was like, I'm gonna
no,
come on and defend its
no,
honor. Yeah.
no, not at all. Like, I mean, if people really think that, I mean, that's on them. I mean, again, that's, like I said, I might not like a movie. I don't think most movies are bad necessarily. I think that, you know, some can be poorly written, some can be poorly filmed, some may just not have enough money, but that doesn't mean that the people behind it were intentionally trying to make a bad movie. Uh,
Well,
and
I
so I
mean,
have to give it a little bit of respect for it most of the time. Um, Even if I don't like it, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It just means it's not for me. And
yeah.
I think that's where everybody else has to start coming from, because claiming such and such as a bad movie is a bad take. And it makes you look like a bad person for doing that.
Wow. You think if somebody says X is a bad movie, you think that's a bad take?
If they're saying that it's a bad movie all around, and that if they think that people who enjoy it are bad people, you know what I
Well,
mean? Like,
those are two
because we,
different things though. Like there are bad movies that I enjoy, but I think that there do exist bad movies in the world.
oh,
Like
no,
I
no, no,
think
no. I'm not saying that there aren't. Okay. So that's not what I meant. There are bad movies, but I don't think that there are, but they're so egregious that people can't enjoy them. Or, because there's lots of, again, there's lots of movies that people enjoy that I don't think are that great, but that doesn't mean they're a bad movie for those people. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm not explaining it right,
I'm sorry, I'm
but
not understanding you. Maybe I'm just like
I'm going in circles, I guess. Um, but I'm just saying, like, so, like we were saying, people talking about the the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Halloween Kills being terrible movies, and that they think anybody who likes it is dumb or is wrong,
right.
or and like you said with TerrorVision, you know, people who say TerrorVision is a bad movie, they, I even when you're saying that and you're saying they're wrong, I don't think that you're saying that somebody having an opposite opinion of that is wrong, but if people are trashing the movie, then they're wrong. Because I think that anybody trashing a movie is, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that people who say they don't like TerrorVision, totally valid. People who say that TerrorVision is bad are wrong. I'm laying it out for you. It's like I think there are legitimately good and legitimately bad movies. We won't always agree on that, but I personally think if you think TerrorVision is a bad movie, you are incorrect.
Okay. All right.
I think you were trying to like throw me a lifeline there and say like, oh no, everybody has their opinion. And no, sometimes people are wrong. And I'm allowed to think that people are wrong.
No. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to think people are wrong. I think that I might not agree with certain movies, and I might question why people like certain movies. And that's where I come from too. It's like, I don't know why people like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's not great, but people who like it love it. It's fine. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with you, but that's me.
Yeah. But so like, do you think it's a bad movie or do you dislike it? Because those are two different things. Or both. You could think both.
No, I don't think it's a bad movie. Again, this goes into where I think that like there are certain pieces in it that are okay. It's a bad movie for me. And I think that's where it comes to. And I think that's where people can objectively, hopefully say that TerrorVision is a bad movie for them. And, saying that it's a bad movie in general is definitely wrong. I don't think TerrorVision is a bad movie at all. I don't think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a bad movie. I don't like it for what it is, but that doesn't mean it's a bad movie overall.
Yeah. I think a lot of, I don't know. I think a lot of fights start over people thinking that saying, I dislike X movie. I couldn't even think of a good example because I was going to say, I dislike The Shining, but I like The Shining and I don't want people to yell at me for not liking it. I don't like this.
They can yell at me. It's all right.
Yes, exactly. No. So if you say, I don't like The Shining, and if you say The Shining is a bad movie, those are two totally different things. But I think people conflate them a lot. People think they're the same thing. And they are not the same thing.
Like, and I think that's where I was trying to get with that was just that because you think it's not great and it's not for you, doesn't mean that it's a inherently bad movie.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bad movies I see. I mean, I'm sorry, but Severin and Vinegar Syndrome, they've made their business on putting out what are terrible movies, which are like, but people love those. And so that's great. You love those terrible movies. I've bought stuff from them and I did not like them. I normally will leave movies in my collection, but I pretty much sold off every movie that I bought from Vinegar Syndrome or Severin because just they were not for me. They're just not. I don't like movies that are that. I get what the movies that I bought were not for me. And so they were bad for me. I didn't like them, and more power to the people who do like that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just not for me.
Yeah. I think it sounds like you're more like you judge whether a movie is good or bad based on if you dug it. Like if I dig it, it's a good movie. Exactly. If I don't dig it, it's bad for me, but other people are allowed to have their own opinion, I think is where you're landing.
Right. And I think that there are certain movies that we can sit there and say, like, and that's the thing too, with like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or TerrorVision, they're not bad movies. They are, you take yourself out of whether you like it or not. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a good movie. It's shot well. It's got some great camera work. Mm-hmm. I thought there were definitely some great a lot of great camera work in that movie, but for me the story was lacking, and that's where I had the issue with it. For other people, they thought this story was great.
Right. And like Psycho Goreman, I think it's a good movie that I didn't like. I can't find I don't think it's a bad movie at all, but it didn't land with me. I could hear
Right.
those keys clicking, and it took
Yeah.
me out of it. I couldn't connect with the movie, but I'm
Right.
not about to call it a bad movie because I don't think it's a bad movie.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And that's the same thing with Texas Chainsaw or Shining or whatever. I don't think
Mhm.
they're bad movies. They're just not for me. And that's the same thing with, like you said, with Psycho Gorman. It's just not, well, you're not even saying it's not for you. It just wasn't for you in that moment. And that's the same thing with me with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Shining. I've watched both of those at least twice. I've tried to give both of them an extra shot, and they just don't work for me. And usually after the second time, I'm like, okay, if it didn't work for me the second time,
Right.
I'm not giving it a third try. So
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll try Psycho Gorman again sometime in the future, and when I'm in a specific mood, and
exactly.
but
And
yeah,
and now you know what it is. And so
mhm.
you can go into it and go, okay, let me see how this washes over me a second time, and maybe it'll hit the right way.
Yeah,
Maybe it won't.
exactly.
But you'll definitely have to let me know for sure. 100%.
I will for sure. And I hope well, I hope I didn't like step over your point too much by being like, oh no, there are bad movies and you can be incorrect on things.
No. I understand your point. I agree with you to an extent that there can be bad movies. That movies but that's the thing though too, is like I believe that those bad movies still have some kind of, because like I said, the stuff that Vinegar Syndrome and Severin put out, some of those, not all of them, but there's some terrible movies that they
Oh
put
yeah,
out that are just horrible, and they really, I don't understand why they're getting Blu-rays when there's other movies that deserve it more. But part of that is because they're preserving that 80s VHS or even older
yeah.
stuff that hasn't been put out. And I get that 100%. I'm all for that. I don't
Mhm.
like them, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't exist. And
Yeah, I mean, there are so many bad movies that I love. So many bad
yeah,
movies that I love. Yeah.
yeah. So it's that's what, and again, that's what I think is great about if when people can have that discussion and understand that just because somebody likes something or doesn't like something doesn't mean that that they're calling it bad, or that even if they do call it bad, that they're wrong. You have to get, maybe if you can have a nice civil discussion about it, you can get down to that and understand what it is about that they don't like or why they're calling it bad.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Speaking of TerrorVision, like you said, TerrorVision, it's not a bad movie at all. It's a fun movie. It's like you said, it's gorgeous. It's got great cinematography, great production design, great effects. Everything's great in it. It's a good movie. It doesn't connect with me on that same level it connects with you, but
Mhm.
I don't deny that it's a good movie. So, and I was entertained. I enjoyed it. I when I can definitely say that you did not steer me wrong. Hopefully you'll watch Psycho Gorman again, and you'll enjoy that, and so I won't feel as bad.
Oh no, don't feel bad. I was going to watch it regardless. I mean, obviously I bought the
Right.
Blu-ray. Like it has been on my watch list forever. I was glad that you finally kind of gave me the kick I needed to finally watch it, because I
Right.
needed to watch it.
Right.
And again, I will revisit it, but it didn't work for me.
Right.
But I don't want you to feel bad. Like
No.
I get that. Like I've recommended movies to people before and then been like, oh no, when they hated it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I
No,
mean, I'm glad I
I don't
watched
feel
it.
bad. I'm glad you watched it. I'm glad you can see that ultimately, like, there's good stuff in it. Like we said, there's lots of good stuff in it. It's just not connecting for you on that writerly level. That
Yeah.
it's too I guess wink and nod. I keep saying, but
Well, there's too much of a remove. It's
yeah.
too, there's an inherent coldness at the center of the movie for me that
Right.
is not a vibe that I resonate with.
Right.
Not to sound too new agey or whatever. That
Right.
was probably a bunch of nonsense, but no, there's just a coldness about it that
Right.
just puts me off.
Yeah, that's, I mean, again, that's what's cool. To me, that's what's cool, is when we can look at things from our own perspectives and say that, one thing is great for one, not for the other, and we have varying degrees of all that. And as long as we can have an interesting conversation about it. To me, that's more fun than just being, because I think ultimately when you get down to it, if we all agreed on it, that would be so boring.
Oh my
If
God.
we
Yeah,
all if we
right?
all enjoyed the same things and everybody's just like, and that's what pisses me off when people are like, but why don't you like this thing that I like? It's like, because I just don't.
Because
It's
I'm a different
fine.
person.
You can like it all you want. I just don't, So
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. And that allows weird little movies like Psycho Goreman or TerrorVision to find a home, because if everybody
Exactly.
liked all the same things, that would mean that everybody disliked all the same things, and there would be all these poor unloved movies out there, and
Exactly.
that
And
would be
that's
the
what in
saddest thing of all.
Vinegar Syndrome and Severin, going back to them, wouldn't have a
Yeah,
business.
exactly.
So yeah, I enjoy that. So and now being able to talk to people on the podcast and being able to bring people in, discover that kind of you know back and forth, is fantastic for me. I love being able to talk and about stuff I love, and find out what other people love. So
Exactly. Exactly.
all right, well, it is we're going on probably my longest episode ever.
Oh
uh
no.
may have to edit some of this out. um
Yeah. Feel free to edit out every single word I said.
no way. No, it's I had a lot of fun. This was I like I said, I love going on the tangents. So this has been a fantastic a discussion, and I hope you had fun, and
Yeah, absolutely.
hopefully I can get you back on for another episode, and we'll try to find something else to disagree about.
Honestly, the way you're like meh to so many movies, I'm sure we will find something to disagree.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, I have to, get you back on for some comic book discussion, maybe some
Yeah.
comic book movie stuff.
Hmm.
And we'll dig deeper into that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and like I said, I hope you'll be back. And I don't know, I don't know how to end it, but
Yeah, that's all right. I know. I appreciate you having me on. I had a lot of fun.
yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad. Thanks again to Jessica Scott for coming on and talking TerrorVision and Psycho Goreman with me. I hope we can have another episode with her again soon. And until then, stay creepy.